morning. I'm traumatized this morning. I wanted to put my nice shoes, and Jeremy traumatized me, just like as he did with you. And he said all things about my shoes. And he doesn't understand that for South African black men, shoes are important. Because we grew up in times where we were not owning any cars, so the shoe was the closest to the car. So every man will polish their shoes and make them look good because that was the only car you have. So, this is American. It's not African. You know. And, I try to fight, some of the things that missionaries, brought back, brought in Africa those years, like suits and ties. I grew up in a traditional Pentecostal church where you have to put your jacket and your tie to come in front. And I hated it, and I didn't know how to, and when I finally broke out of that, and I felt like, I'm relieved, So I'm happy to be here today to share with you. And when Keith, asked me to share, I agree. But when I got home, I'm like, why did I agree? And I thought I take time to prepare, unlike other preachers maybe, and I was like, what am I going to talk about? And looking at the topic, I was like, thinking. Then I thought, let me ask Keith to clarify a bit, where is he going with this topic? And I made an appointment to talk to Keith. Then on that day, I thought, I've got Jeremy, and I call Jeremy at any time. So I called Jeremy first before my appointment with Keith. I said, Jeremy, I agreed to speak. What do you think? And Jeremy, without any, doubt, he said, I was thinking about this whole philosophy, African philosophy of Ubuntu. And I'm like, And I spoke to Keith, I think an hour or, 2 hours after talking to Jeremy. He said the same thing. And I felt like, this is what I'll speak about. And if anything goes wrong or you don't like this topic, you know who to blame. Go to Keith, and it's not my. But I want to say something. I want to put something before I say, this Ubuntu philosophy. It's an African philosophy. I grew up in that. I didn't read books. I don't know why missionaries didn't write books about that, because no one wrote books about this. We grew up in that, and it's something in me. And later on, there's a lot of articles that were written. One of the guys who wrote a lot about it is Desmond Tutu, the late Anglican bishop who started writing papers on that, and Nelson Mandela spoke about it, and other prominent people. You started seeing, a lot about that, and I'm like, this is close to the Bible, and I'll show you as we go along, and let me make this, also to say that I'm not here promoting my culture and saying my culture is better than yours. Because, those of you who have studied cross-cultural communication, you'll understand that every culture is good, and it's bad, and it's progressive. So this is one part that is good about my culture, and I'm not ashamed to zoom into that. The other bad part, I don't talk about it in America. We deal with it at home, so we don't bring it here. So you have to come to Africa to hear me talking about that. So the question that will come into our mind is that, what is this Ubuntu? What is it? And the definition that I've got here is that the central tenet of called Ubuntu philosophy, it's in Zulu, one of the biggest language. They say, umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. It's not tongues, it's the language. Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. And the direct, simple translation of that is that a person is a person through others. Deep stuff. You are a person through other people. You're not just an island. Unfortunately, urbanization, westernization, greed, corruption is sort of taking away things out of this beautiful, beautiful culture, beautiful philosophy. Because all these things come with, individualistic, approach, just want for myself, and if you look at our politicians, let me not talk about them too much. If you look at our politicians, it's about themselves, just like your politicians. It's about themselves. And this philosophy says, I'm a person through other people. So you don't see yourself as you alone. Hence there's that, can you put that on the board? I am because we are. I am because we are. I can't detach myself from other people. And this fits in with a Christian philosophy to say we belong to each other. I cannot do it alone. So I'm part of the group. And the worldview is based on the belief that the fundamental connectedness of all human beings. We are connected. Doug yesterday spoke deep truth here to say in the church we talk about unity, we talk about these things, but we somehow detach ourselves from what we read every day. And there's this connectedness in us as people, and as Christians, we need to stick to that. And I don't have time, I don't want to go into the whole values of Ubuntu, but to just give you a snippet, some of the values of Ubuntu, you'll think it's taken from the Bible. You'll think it's biblical values. It's one of it's group solidarity, hospitality. I grew up in a home where it was open for anyone. And as boys, we used to sleep in a hut house with my brother on a mat. And whenever a stranger comes, my father will just bring them in and will grumble. And I'm like, what is this, and it was a norm, and it was not something foreign. And I was talking to Busi the other day. Busi grew up in a Christian home. She says, and she grew in a better family environment than me. Christian home. She had a bed. I didn't have a bed, and she said they'll push us out of our bed for the visitors. For all the people who are visiting. So it was a norm, and sharing, respect. Respect was forced, whether you like it as a child, respect was forced in a way, and my father was disciplinarian, if he hears that you disrespected anyone in our community. I grew up in a small community in a farm. You know that you're going to get it. And it was before the children's rights and the abuse and all those things. You just knew that you had to be in line, and respect was one of those things. So when I became a Christian, it was not difficult for me to understand all these issues. Respect, hospitality is things that I grew up with. I just help me to make it better. Compassion is part of the thing, and one of the struggles that we're having nowadays is that young people that are in the cities that are helping their parents in the communities, they send money, they send foodstuff, they send all those things, and within a week, the food is finished. And I'm like, Mom, I bought you so much food. Where is, oh, my neighbor didn't have food. My neighbor's neighbor, the food is gone, because that is life. We just connected, we live together. And the General Secretary of Council of Churches in Zambia, Susan Member Metali, said this: Ubuntu is a spirituality that enables mutual sharing, satisfaction, and is illustrated in the biblical account of the disciples sharing all they had with one another so that no one lacked anything. So that's what she said about this philosophy. And if you look at Acts chapter 4, now the multitude of who believe were one heart and soul, and no one said to any of these things that belongs to him was his own, but they had everything in common. Most of the time when we zoom into that verse, we only look at the sharing of things, but it comes from the relationship they had. It comes from the time they were spending together. It comes from knowing each other. I've written a few things here. The encouragement begins with friendship. They knew each other well, and they cared about each other, and they knew what is going on in each other's life, and they spent time together. Keith, that's why I like GRG. That's what attracted me to GRG, because all these values, cared about each other, carry each other's burden. In ministry nowadays, it's easy to just say, oh, I'm doing well, I've got a big church and I'm okay, who cares? But in this family, we care about each other. We go an extra mile with each other. During COVID, I came in during COVID, and by the way, I came in, a little bit broken. When I came in to join GRG, I came out of a ministry that I served for 12 years, and I was 57 years at that time, and it's a youth ministry. So you can understand it. So I said to them, I think my time is done. And they were so angry with me. The chairman of my board was so mad with me. I was not in that meeting. I understand he was kicking chairs, crying for a 57-year-old man. And I was giving space to a 28-year-old man. So I came to GRG a little bit broken, not that bad, but, and when I shared with Keith, he organized someone to talk to me and take me through those things. And COVID hit, and I was talking to my brothers in different countries. I remember talking to William in Rwanda and say, how are things there? And few times he said to me, Ronas, I'm thinking of closing the church. The restriction and the government rules are so bad that I want to close. And I said to him, take time, think about it, pray about it, take one step at a time. And these values of GRG, are helping us to go together. And today, William is continuing with the church there. And Keith and Susan and myself were there. And it's a refreshing church because it's younger people. Not that old people are not good, but it's refreshing. It's younger people, and we journeying together. And I tell people when they ask me, how am I doing, how is ministry? I'm like, I'm in the best space of my life. I feel like I'm finally doing what God wanted me to do. The youth ministry was okay. The pastoring, but by the way, I didn't do well in pastoring. I had to leave. I had to give up, because I was going to chase all the people from church. And And some people, they think, I'll make a good pastor, and they keep on saying, why don't you start your own church? And I'm like, nah, I don't think it will work. I'll end up with no one, because my church thinking is sometimes not straight, so I might lose people. One anthropologist went to Africa to study something about the African culture. And he was in a village, and he saw kids playing. And he went to the kids and say to the kids, hey, kids, I've got a basket of goodies there under that tree. And whoever will run fast to get there, you can eat all those goodies, they are yours. And the kids sort of came together, like talking, and he thought that maybe they were preparing themselves to run. And after a while, the kids held each other's hands, and they ran together and reached the end, and they made a circle, and they enjoyed the goodies together. And the anthropologist asked them and said, why did you do that? Because I've given you a chance that you can go there and just get all this on your own. And the kid said, one cannot enjoy while others are not. That is what GRG is all about. You can run alone and do well, but you don't want to leave someone behind. And by the way, let me give you a picture. When people are running, you understand well. When people are running, there are those who are really good, who you know that these three are really good. But let's face it, there are some who are not good. I don't know if you understand that. There are some that will be the last. It's a fact. And yet these kids chose to say, we don't want to leave someone behind. And I don't want to be the one ahead and leaving some behind. We're going together. So we are here, part of us here is that we want to go together. Yes, you want growth as individual. You want your ministry to go as individual. You're doing all what you can do, but at the same time, we want to go together. So if you're part of GRG, no matter how slow you are, you're part of us. Another thing that I want to touch here under this whole topic is there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I walk, I walk an hour every morning, and I walk 2 hours on Saturday. And I'm a fast walker. And Busi don't want to walk with me. Whenever I say, let's walk, sometimes she'll agree for us to just take a walk around, but now and then she'll be pulling my shirt and say, where are you rushing to? Slow down, because it's... So I walk with my neighbors, when they saw me walking, they wanted to join me, 3 of my neighbors. And they said, we go to work in the morning, why don't we do it early? So we leave at 5:15 in the morning so that they can go to work. And it's uphill where we're walking. Jeremy will know, going up to Uplands. It's uphill. So we walk there together, and we talk a lot. We solve the country's problems. We sort out the pastors that are not doing good. We talk about our wives, but we don't tell them because we'll have nowhere to stay if we tell them. So we have all, but we walk together and don't see even the distance that we're covering. So some Saturday I end up walking alone, and when I walk alone, I time myself, and I'm like, I want to make the time, I want to improve the time and walk fast. Instead of 2 hours, it will be 1 hour, 50 minutes or 45 minutes. And I'll say to Busi, today it was quicker. I was alone. But when I'm with the guys, it's longer, but it's fun. You know, and they ask me questions. I'm the only pastor in the group, and in the group, and they will ask me questions. What about this? What about this? And I try to be smart and answer all the questions. So, but we walk together, and part of our journey is that in the walking together, we're sharpening each other. And that's what GRG is doing. We're sharpening each other. Just like Proverbs 27, verse 17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. So in our togetherness, in our walking together, we're sharpening each other. We provoke each other to love and good works and make one another wiser and better. I'm sure you have noticed that if you have been part of this group. Being part of the GRG leadership, there's so many smart people there. And I'm like, wow. I belong to this group. And meeting of minds can help people see ideas with new clarity, refine them, shape them into brilliant insight. That's what we do. Another idea is that two friends who bring their ideas together can help each other to become sharper. So that's our coming together. But the problem is the power-hungry and achievement-driven make us alienate people around us. Those who are driven to achieve and to feel powerful, we end up not holding hands to run together. We end up leaving others behind. And the encouragement is that we hold each other's hands and run together. Even, if you think you're smarter, people like us, we need you so that you can help us. So that is all about that. And then the other aspect that I want to touch is the prayer of Jesus in John 17. I've just picked verse 23 only. And can you put it on the board? And I in them and you in me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you have sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. Doug somehow touched a little bit yesterday here about the difficulty of unity. And I've noticed, I don't know here, but I've noticed back home that sometimes unity works in a way that we believe in the same things. And I'm glad that Keith accepted me and GRG accepted me as I am, because I don't think like them. I'm different. If you sit with me and we talk about different things, I cannot be the same with you. I grew up in a farm. I grew up in a small community during apartheid years, and some of you grew up in a free American. How do you expect me to think like you? Can't. And I've reached a point and say, if you don't accept me, with my background, then I don't belong to you. I lost a friend recently. We've known each other for 8 years, and in fact, I thought I'll work with that ministry than GRG, and I only find out that he thought that I'll think like him.
My whole life,
see things the way he's seeing things. And I think I might have said something political that he didn't like.
As a kid, I'd create characters.
And
I wrote
he just
stories
dumped
to
me.
entertain my family and friends.
And I tried to reach out.
I always had jobs.
I'm sorry for
since
whatever.
I was a little kid,
He
about
just
7,
dumped
8
me.
years old, and I would use that
after
money
some
to
times,
go to
I
movies.
reflect. And
I just got back
myself,
from filming in
"That is
South
good.
Africa.
That is out of my space, because he's not the right person. And let me say this. I know that it might not sound good to some of you, but It's okay. If you're going to break relationship because of politics, or any other disagreements besides Christ, you need help. You need help. Maybe we can set up some counseling and help you. Because those are not the main things. If I differ with you politically, so what? I don't like your political organization, so what? So Christians are tied up with useless things and divisions that are unnecessary. Churches are divided just because we don't agree on this. Even some theological, points that we differ on are useless. That's why I was teaching in Bible school for 6 years, and I don't see myself a theologian, because I'm a practical person. So some of the theological debate, I don't even waste my time to go in there, because I'm like, so what? Whether tribulation first or tribulation last or whatever, the thing that I know is that Jesus will be with me. Whatever you go through, so what? So our problem is that we miss out the main things and focus on something that it's minor. So I choose not to bother myself about things that's why I've got many friends, because I've got Jeremy will tell you about the culture of South Africa in the past. I've got lots of African friends, and African friends and black people shouldn't be on the same table, because it's, we have got one crazy friend with Jeremy. In fact, I doubted Jeremy at first because he was a friend of that guy, and I know that he's crazy, and I'm like, this Jeremy, what is wrong with him? You know who I'm talking about, Jeremy. And he comes from opposite direction with me. But when you're in Christ, we're together. And my family, by the way, culturally, it's the most confused family. My wife comes from Swaziland. She speaks Siswati. My son-in-law comes from Cameroon. He's a Cameroonian. And my children were born in another language where I was pastoring, the language is called Tsonga. That's the area where Scott and Daniel have connections. And I speak that language with my children and English. And my family, my mother and my brothers and sisters, we are Sutus. We speak Sesotho. So can you see all those things? So that's why I don't have a problem. If I have a problem, then I have to send my wife home. I have to take my daughter back, When she first told me, she said, I've got someone that, I love, and I said, who is that person? The first question, who is that person? She said, it's someone out of this country. I said, are there no boys here in South Africa? and she says, where is mom from? And I'm like, disrespectful children. So let's not worry about our differences. I can't paint myself white. I'm not. And if my accent is not the good accent, it's good because I'm not your language. And I'm comfortable with that. In fact, I'm doing well to speak English. I should be preaching in Siswati here and have some interpretation. Jeremy would do. And I've written a few notes about that scripture Togetherness can be defined as a feeling of satisfaction in being united with other people for a specific purpose. United with other people. And as I've said, unity is not uniformity. I do marriage counseling and premarital, and sometimes I look at people and I'm like, especially the young men, I'm like, what are you getting yourself into? You really understand this business? After I've been married for 10 years or a little bit over, one day, Busi just confused me. And I was honest with her, and I was serious, and I'm like, Busi, you're really confusing me. And I remember her face. She looked at me with her beautiful smile, and she said, God didn't say you must understand me. He said you must love me. And to be serious, she really set me free. Because, on days where I look at her and I'm like, this woman is confusing me, I remember those words to say, God said you must love me. So those of you who are married, when you wake up one day and you are confused, don't worry, just laugh. Because God said, that's the only thing you can do. Nothing else. And simply being in a close proximity with a crowd of people does not create that feeling of togetherness, but a spirit of unity that results when minds are in agreement creates the togetherness. We choose to be in agreement. We choose to be part of a group and contribute and receive something. I thought in closing of this topic of Ubuntu, I'll play a clips of an American, but forgive me for his accent. He's not speaking in an African accent, and that I couldn't solve that. My friend, I spoke with a friend. He said, let's have coffee. And I had coffee with him, and he said, what are you up to? So I spoke to him. I told him about coming here and my speaking today. And he said, what are you talking about? I told him the topic. And the following day or the following 2 days, he sent me a clip on American that you all know, maybe, Tom Cruise. And I'm not, if you don't like him, I'm sorry, but he said something good about this topic. And I'm not, I don't watch films a lot, only when I'm in the aeroplane and I can't tell you the names. So, but I know that he's a film producer and actor. So he was in South Africa in 2022. And guess what? He was just 30 minutes or 45 minutes from my mother's place, the place where he was staying. And now and then we'd see his helicopter going out or coming in. And that place where he was, it's a place where my mother and father grew up. And that was my father's hunting places. They've made it exclusive game reserve that are expensive. So he was in that place. And in February, those of you who follow things like that, in February, there were PGA awards. And he said something that touched my heart. When I received this video, I was like, how did you know that I'm going to talk about this? So let's watch this clip a bit.
My whole life, I wanted to make movies. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted adventure. As a kid, I'd create characters. I wrote stories to entertain my family and friends, and I always had jobs since I was a little kid, about 7, 8 years old, and I would use that money to go to the movies. And I just got back from filming in South Africa. That's an absolutely stunning country, and there's a beautiful philosophy. It's Ubuntu, and that originated there. And it is the idea that humanity is based on the plural, not the singular. Ubuntu means essentially, I am, because we are. And so I thank all of you. And I am because you are. Thank you.
Beautiful. If it was me, I would have said, I've done it again. Me again. But he's choosing to say, I am because we are. So may I leave you with this phrase and let it, if you forget everything that I've said here, just remember that you are because we are. I am because we are. So I'm this today because of the group that I belong to. It's not me. Let me close with these 3 questions. Can you put the questions for me? By the way, these questions didn't come from me. I got them somewhere, and I tried to look at them and see if I can change something to look smart, but they were perfect for here. The first one, do we prioritize building a spiritual relationship above pursuing personal interest? Good question. In our relationships, do we take initiative to pursue building, or we wait for other people to make relationship convenient for our lives? And the third one, who has God put in your heart or in your life to serve and sacrifice for, to build deeper spiritual relationship with? Big questions. So as we leave here, maybe we have connected with new people. Maybe God has put certain people in your life. As we go back home, who are you going to pursue and build deeper relationship? Thank you very much.